Hey everybody, welcome back to Nerdium, a podcast where two guys with a love for comics, TV, video games, and movies hide from their partners so we can indulge in the finer things in life. But kids, this week it's a little different. Instead of blockbuster hits and award-winning movies, Matt and I delve into our guilty pleasure bin, particularly a few of the B movies that we've fallen in love with over the years. Movies our partners hate us for sharing with them, or, just in my case, attempting to even play it while we're in the same room. So join Matt and I while we set up our VCRs and old DVD players, while we review just a few of our guilty yet somehow glorious pleasures. What'll make our list? Will it be giant monsters, bad acting, horrible voice dubbing, or anything Nicolas Cage made after the late 90s? Stick around and find out. Matt, when you're ready, hit play and let's enjoy some ridiculous movie making.
So we're back, and this week we got Avengers Infinity War that came out for home release, so...
All of us that have been avoiding all the spoilers for how many months now can finally sit down and watch it.
Yeah, exactly. If you missed out a chance to go see it in theaters because, say, like you had small children and weren't able to make it out, you can now watch it on a digital copy.
Although if you live in like a small or a big enough city, there should be those theaters that like play the movies, you know, the super cheap movies that, you know, aren't playing in the big chains anymore. You could probably still find it in one of those teeny tiny small theaters.
Yeah, if you want to go pay money to go see it and eat stale popcorn, yeah, you could do that.
Stale popcorn is still a delicious meal if you're hungry enough.
I don't know if it should be classified a meal.
Well, anything's a meal, I guess.
All right. So also we had another more fulsome trailer for the Venom movie that came out.
Oh, that is definitely a word I would use to describe that trailer.
Yeah, so Venom is one of those movies that's kind of been mired in controversy since it was announced because it's a Spider-Man villain movie without the Spider-Man. So
I mean, they're still talking about the Joker movie without the Batman.
Yeah, and that's getting just as much heat. So
yeah, I know. But the thing is, like, as much as Venom is a Spider-Man villain, like, to be clear, that's exactly what he is. He still had his own series of Venom, the Lethal Enforcer. Like, he's had his own runs, and he's a prominent enough figure that he should be able to carry a movie by himself.
Yeah, he's got enough material to work with.
That being said, the first trailer, when you're not going to show, like, Venom at all until, like, the very, very last second... I mean, I liked it, but I can see where a lot of people that are so anxious to see not Topher Grace were really kind of looking to see what they were going to do with that character.
Yeah. So this new trailer that just came out gave everybody what they wanted. They gave a lot of Venom. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Exactly. There was no shortage of it. Plus, we kind of got in the initial trailer when you see him on the MRI machine and he's just kind of shaking around and, you know, freaking out in there. Mm-hmm. This time around, they've recut it and they've superimposed the Venom face, it seems, over his face.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool, a cool feature, and we also learned that he has a penchant for eating humans.
Yep.
Which is, you know, I mean, I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
But I doubt the Disney crowd is really going to go down for some weird symbiote feasting there.
Still a little kind of hesitant on where they're going to go with the movie exactly. He looks good.
Yeah, for sure.
Pulls off a good Venom. Like, they actually did the character justice this time rather than the Topher Grace.
That mess.
Yeah.
The Venom that shall not be spoken.
Yeah. Venom looks huge and menacing, like he should.
Yeah.
You also get a better look at a bunch of the other symbiotes.
Yeah, I'm surprised we're throwing all the symbiotes in for this movie.
Yeah.
Like like as far as an origin story movie kind of goes, I'm surprised they're going that route.
Yeah, usually you'd kind of expect them to kind of establish the character a little bit more, some backstory of the symbiote, and then maybe, I don't know, maybe a sequel they would toss out that he's not the only one.
Well, you know, in the world that we live in with the end credit sequences and stuff like that, you know, you could show Cletus Cassidy and Carnage coming around if the movie does well, and I would imagine they would do a sequel. Mm-hmm. That would be a good thing to do. You know, think of like Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. We didn't hit the ground running with the Joker. We kind of started with the Scarecrow, which was a stellar choice
Yep.
of the Rogues Gallery, but then like maybe the next one around, this is the big villain. Let's get the origin out of the way. I think that all the symbiotes all at once, I think that's a little much for an origin story, but I'm willing to be proven wrong. Like I'm still like keeping my fingers crossed that this is going to be as good as I want it to be, without trying to get on the hype train.
Yeah, and I think for a Venom movie, it's necessary to have more of the origin story this time around. Normally, I'd say we don't need an origin story, but because this is not a character that's really kind of hit the screen other than Spider-Man 3.
It's not Venom's origin story isn't one that we've been beaten over the head with a billion times, right? Like, how many times have we seen the origin stories for Spider-Man, Batman, Superman? Like, we get beat over the head with certain origin stories time and time again. Outside of, like, the initial origin story of the symbiote and the Secret Wars, and that was way back in the 80s? I think it was
Was it 80s? I thought it was early 90s.
I think it was, like, late 80s, because that's when, like, the comic books started to get that grit in there. It could very well be the early 90s. Like I can picture the cover of the issue of the Secret Wars, and it kind of had that transition between the 80s and 90s coloring and feel to it.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's not one that we've really touched on. The Spider-Man the Animated Series kind of glossed over it with J. Jonah Jameson's son being an astronaut. I think they found it on the moon or some damn thing and then brought it back. They've kind of like tried to do like a quick run over in like the animated series here and there, but they've never really gone through with it. And I think they're trying to do that with this one. As look at what we found in space sort of deal. I think the Secret Wars, you'd have to be willing to shoot another Avengers movie essentially to get that going.
Mm-hmm. And we need the origin for this one because we kind of have to know what Venom we're dealing with, because as far as I know, there's not going to be any connection to Spider-Man. And Venom has always had that start with Spider-Man, so.
Well, exactly. He's dominant enough that he stands alone now. Yeah. But that part and partial to a lot of the video games, the animated series, stuff like that. Like, I have a few editions of the Lethal Enforcer series downstairs. He had his Agent Venom series that went running for a little while. Mm-hmm. So it's not like he's not unknown. It's just that, and this is coming from somebody that doesn't read a lot of Marvel comics, so take that for all it's worth. He's not somebody that does a lot of standalone stuff. He just kind of, he's there. He's always showing up. Like, and he is great when he shows up. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to remember the last time I actually saw a Venom cover at the comic book shop when I've been poking around, and I'm pretty sure I've looked over it. I'm just, I can't remember it being like all the other superheroes that we have.
Yeah, well, there has been a bunch, like the Agent Venom stuff. It was pretty interesting, and then it kind of spun into the, Venom Space Knight or whatever, where he joins the Guardians of the Galaxy for a little bit. Yeah. So it kind of got interesting there. You also have some of the Venomverse stuff that came out recently, where pretty much every superhero gets the symbiote treatment.
I remember seeing something like Deadpool getting the symbiote treatment for a little while.
Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of stuff there. Also, with the trailer, like, they haven't exactly been super clear that it's necessarily something they found in space. I think you do see that one scene where there's that spaceship, shuttle or something. Mm-hmm. It's crashed. Excuse me.
They play off that the symbiote is on Earth and, giant evil company A has it and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. But they don't really tell you. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember them really. You're right. I don't remember them saying, hey, look at what we found here, there, or anywhere for that matter.
Yeah. And also, like, they kind of, how it's worded at one point in the trailer kind of made me think of the version of Ultimate Venom, where he was a synthetic creation. I think it was a military creation, or I think it was, can't recall. I don't know. It might have been created as a cure for cancer or something like that. Some sort of weird thing.
Yeah, it's always the cure for something that goes haywire and mauls everybody. It's been a while.
Everybody. A lot of the Ultimate Marvel Universe stuff I've kind of, for some reason, purged. I don't remember a whole lot.
Yeah, I have some Ultimate Spider-Man stuff in the collection, but it's just not when all that kind of stuff started going on when I was younger, I just went, I'm just going to stick to let's just say the prime continuity of the Marvelverse, and that was before I just kind of forsook the Marvel universe to just stay with DC.
Yeah, Marvel's got a lot of stuff going on in a lot of different universes. Sometimes it's hard to kind of keep track, but so we get to see a bunch of the different symbiotes in the movie. At one point, I thought it was Carnage that we were seeing near the end there, where the symbiote creates the bladed weapons and kind of goes toe to toe with Venom, mainly because you get that one scene where he's ripping like the symbiote off of Eddie Brock, and the head and the neck looks like Carnage, but apparently.
Yeah, I know the scene you're talking about where you can you almost see like 4 different characters on the screen where like the symbiotes are clearly ripping each other apart while Eddie Brock and this other character are beating the piss out of each other.
Yeah.
It's a cool scene. It looks cool.
It does, but so I was thinking, okay, well, Carnage is traditionally the red and black, primarily red.
Yep.
This guy is more of a gray and black. And so a lot of the internet hype is pointing towards the character Riot.
Yeah.
So Riot's color scheme is gray and black. He traditionally has blunt force weapons, not edged weapons like Carnage does. But you see the edged weapons in the trailer, so I don't know. They may or may not be kind of misleading, or they're just kind of throwing a couple things in.
Yeah, or it could be one of those, he's beat the piss out of Venom with blunt weapons and it's not working, or Venom's used a blade, and you know what I mean? Like, you never know how the transition is. Carnage, from my memory, has never used a blunt weapon. It's always, he lives to his name. He just shreds and mauls anything that he can get his hands on.
Yeah. So, also Riot's not very predominant in the comics. He was kind of only in for, I think, like 4 panels or something like that.
Yeah.
So, out of all the symbiotes, he doesn't get a whole lot of airtime, but apparently he might have more of a significant role in this movie, so that could be who it was. And we could be seeing Cletus Cassidy, Carnage, also near the end.
Yeah.
Because I think Woody Harrelson's already mentioned that he's supposed to be playing a bigger part of the sequel if it gets the green light, or if it, I don't know if it's got the green light or not.
I don't. It looks like it could be a good enough movie where they're probably going to start planning the sequel before release. Mm-hmm. But again, it's a dark movie, so we'll see how it goes. Like, everybody's kind of playing the I don't know, might be too dark, blah 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 game.
Yeah,
but I'm still keeping high hopes for this. Like, it still looks to me like a movie I'm going to enjoy. But then again, I also don't, mind a lot of the movies that a lot of people are kind of trying to veer away from. So it's, take that for all it's worth.
And well, on that note, we can get into the prime topic of this discussion.
Yeah, speaking of weird and bizarre and just stupid movies sometimes.
Yeah, so we decided to go with kind of the guilty pleasures, the cheesy movies, or the movies that weren't well received that we enjoy.
Particularly like B movies, like like for me, this is where like my movie tastes go to, like just the weird. B movies for me, like my favorite ones are the exploitation movies, because they're just so campy and silly, and I've watched them since I was a kid, and even to this day I'll be watching one and think to myself, who the hell thought this was a good idea? And I liked the movie. Clearly somebody it's a movie that I can enjoy, but some B movies are just they're just awful. they're just so awful to watch.
So basically, we just kind of try to set some guidelines for this discussion. I set out that the movie can't have any more than 6 stars on IMDb. Mm-hmm. It's got to be in the lower tier, and it's got to kind of be in the nerd genre. So like you can kind of say like the one half of movies, so the action, fantasy, sci-fi, that kind of stuff. We're leaving it the rom-coms and everything. Steve's been banished from this conversation because he also wanted to point out that the entire Twilight saga never really got higher than 5 stars on IMDb, and he's a very big Twilight fan, and he was gonna have this whole thing on it. Yeah.
This is the problem with unpaid labor, is that we can only bitch about it so much. But I mean, he disappoints me. He disappoints me on a regular basis.
Yeah, he does. Especially when he like went to Comic-Con, didn't invite us, and he went as, I guess it's Edward from Twilight, and all it was just he put glitter on his face.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this is, you send a guy out to do a job, and he just blows it.
Yeah.
And at least he didn't have any of our logos on him, so we're kind of safe for that for now.
For now, he's not smart enough to put the logos on. Even if we put him out there to represent us, he wouldn't do it right. He'd screw it up somehow. This
is true. I think we'll just use him for schlepping equipment from now on.
Yeah. You want me to go first, or do you want to go first?
Well, why don't you go first? You get to do the majority of the work half the time.
All right. So, yeah, I flipped through a catalog of some of my favorite Cheese Fest movies.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of wanted to go the direction of Schwarzenegger for some of them.
Okay.
Just because he is so good at making cheesy, campy movies. But surprisingly, he has very few that actually go below 6 stars.
I've always, it's funny when we sat down to do this topic, and I started going through a list of like B movies, and I've seen, and you don't realize just how much of your life you've wasted watching B movies until you're going through the list and you're like, holy shit, I've seen all of these. I often wonder if maybe the just like the desire to like watch bad movies hasn't bumped up some of these ratings artificially.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like we all know that Commando is an awful movie.
Yeah.
But for some reason it scores ridiculously high because we see it for what it is, and that is it's a Schwarzenegger 80s action movie.
Yeah.
Like it's the big beefy dude just blowing stuff up, and these movies are not good, but they develop this cult following that's just like kind of artificially inflates what's really there.
Yeah. And like originally I was trying to find one, and the closest one I could find was Last Action Hero at 6.1 stars, and I was like, I said
really 6.1?
6.1.
Oh my god, it doesn't even deserve a 2. Oh, that was the worst of them.
Oh, come on. It's like every like 90s kid's fantasy of Arnold Schwarzenegger coming out of the screen and taking him on this
You know what, as
adventure.
a kid that grew up in the 90s, no, it is not.
Yeah. I'll kick it off with probably the oldest one I have here. Leprechaun from 1993.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good choice.
So it's Jennifer Aniston's debut feature film, and it's all kinds of cheese. Like, it's got Warwick Davis playing the Leprechaun, and it was originally meant to be more of a dark children's movie, and then the studio decided to make it a adult horror comedy.
Didn't as time went on, they had like 4 or 5 sequels. Didn't it just turn into like a dark horror comedy after a while? Like just, I remember, I forget which Leprechaun it was that I watched, but he was like pushing a lawnmower, running at somebody like blade forward, and like they're just such stupid movies.
Yeah, I think it's gone up to like 5 or something.
Yeah, I think one of them's in space. Like it is a great example of guilty pleasure movies, man.
It eventually got to Leprechaun in Space, but before that, there was Leprechaun in the Hood, and
that's right. That's right.
So they took the Leprechaun movies to places that I would never expect to go, and it kind of was where they ended up taking some other kind of 80s, 90s horror movies. Like they all ended up in space at some point.
At some point in time, yeah, you're kind of obligated to go into space because once you've killed everything on Earth, there's really you can only go up from there.
Yeah, so the movie's about a family moving into a country house and then finding this pot of gold and then attracting the attention of the leprechaun, and all kinds of shenanigans kind of play out. Apparently, at one point, the studio got permission from Lucky Charms to have the leprechaun eat a bowl of Lucky Charms, and then when the studio actually saw the final cut, it was like, nope, take that out. We don't want it.
You may not do that with our product.
So that's how bad this movie is where Lucky Charms did not want to be even advertised in it.
But the thing is, like, that is a decision that somebody made without ever watching a Leprechaun movie. Because it's one of those things like, yeah, sure, you're making a Leprechaun movie, cool, here, have some Lucky Charms. You know, to not do your research, and all of a sudden you see a cut where, like, he's eating the cereal out of somebody's hollowed out skull or some damn thing. Like, it just... I mean, think about, have a look at the script before you offer your product in for placement.
I'm sure it was when it was originally pitched as the dark children's movie. They were like, oh yeah, we can market to children with cereal. And then I think when it got changed to more of an adult movie, then yeah. But Jennifer Aniston, like, looks super young in the movie. Like, this was I think Friends was already on at this point.
Was it?
I think so. And so this was kind of her first kind of foray into the movie world. Clearly
before Office Space.
Yeah. Okay, so no, I'm wrong. Friends started in 1994, so it was the year after. So this movie got her noticed.
Somebody watched Leprechaun and thought, I have a great role for her to play.
Yeah, let's have her in an on again, off again relationship with David Schwimmer on TV for the next 10 years.
Yeah, there you go. I can see how that would transition.
Yeah. So, if you haven't seen Leprechaun, it's a movie that you can't really say it holds its own and kind of stood the test of time, because in 1993 it was not a great movie.
I was going to say it was bad in 93, because I remember seeing it in 93 and going, what a schlock fest.
Yeah.
And it still has maintained that standard. It has not aged well at all.
No. And Warwick Davis does a good job at playing a creepy leprechaun. Like, it by no...
Oh, we're not going to shit on Warwick Davis, but the movie as a whole is not greater than the sum of its parts.
No, and by no means is it scary. He's got the creepy factor down, but it's not scary.
Most I find on our lists when you're dealing with B movies, particularly of the horror genre, you can always see where they've tried to like do the scary boogity thing, and even at the time that it was released, it just did not. It can't be taken as a serious. Like, even the jump scares are just like, nah, I don't know.
Well, why did I jump at that?
Yeah, there's like no, there's no, like, one of the movies that comes to mind that I was actually going to put on my list was a movie in the early 80s called Chopping Mall.
I saw that.
Where like, it's supposed to be this terrifying, we're going to hide in the mall overnight, and then the robot security guards go on a murderous rampage and slice and dice everybody with lasers. They try to do like the scary spooky, and you just can't take it seriously. It's so over the top that it's just like, nah, man, I'm good on that.
Like the 80s and 90s, they had tons of really just B-level movies that we could have just went to town. If we narrowed it down just to like the 80s or the 90s, we could have...
You could do from like 1980 to 1985 and still cover most of like just a huge list of B movies, like especially like in the slasher horror genre like that.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what it was about the 80s. I think everybody was on a cocaine-fueled bender, and we all just thought that insane blood, gore, and body horror was what was on the menu for scary movies.
Yeah. So, what was your first one there?
Not in no like particular order, and only because I'm a sucker for these kinds of movies. My oldest movie is from 1954, and that's Godzilla, the original Godzilla.
All right.
And I love giant monster movies. They're awful. They're stupid. They're just over the top. But if there's one thing that if there's one series that just I don't know why it's still around, it's Godzilla. And there's something appealing about a guy in a rubber lizard costume breaking down cardboard Tokyo, and then watching like the army, and I'm quote unquote army, attend Godzilla, and you can literally see the fishing line attached to the little dinky cars as they're dragged across homemade terrain. The giant monster movie tropes, especially in the 50s, where you're looking at like a post-World War II era, the nuclear scare was on, the Cold War, and it was like, well, what's all this radiation doing to the planet? And that's where we get like the huge monster movies such as Godzilla, Tarantula, Them, like all these giant destruction. It was more of a cautionary tale of what we could be doing to our planet. And one of the people that are definitely going to jump on that is going to be Japan after they got blown to oblivion by World War II there.
Yeah.
It really started to delve into a lot of socio-political commentary at the time. One of the themes that they actually explore is Japan's forgetfulness of the war over the decade. They kind of bring that back. I was reading an article which basically said that Godzilla was almost designed as a reminder of, hey, don't forget what the hell happened 10 years ago, because everybody had gotten complacent. Mm-hmm. Everybody was suddenly okay with everything. It's like, no. That happened over there. Radiation was still very much permeated in that area. Mm-hmm. As time has gone on, Godzilla has become like this huge pop culture icon. We have movies like when you and I went to see Pacific Rim, excuse me. Just stuff like that. Like he wasn't the first giant monster movie, but he is one of the worst giant monster movies that I've ever seen. And at one point in time, I owned countless Godzilla movies. To me, there's something appealing. The acting is horrible. The voiceover dubbing is atrocious on a good day. It is the old trope of a guy who's clearly talking for 5 minutes, and the English dub is pretty much just a yes. So it is. I enjoy them. There's been too many. I didn't bother writing down all the different people that have worn the rubber suit. I haven't jotted down the countless amount of directors there. I refuse to address the Matthew Broderick version that needs to leave this planet and never show up ever again. But as far as one of my B movies that still to this day it just keeps on going, and we have one coming up in 2019.
Is it 2019? Thought it was this year.
It's either the end of this year or early next year, where we have the next Godzilla movie coming out, mm-hmm. which was teased at the end of King Kong Skull Island.
Yeah, and it's in continuation of the previous Godzilla movie there. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting how the character, the character of Godzilla has been kind of retconned from a mutated lizard to now an ancient titan.
Yeah, it's weird that they've gone that route, because Godzilla was always a warning of what was going on at the time. Maybe it was genetic alterations, maybe it was the radiation. Mm-hmm. Now we're going with the titan. Yeah,
I think they're still saying like the nukes woke him up, but
yeah,
now he's something from a lot longer ago.
But it is. I love them. I love giant monster movies. I love the fact that Godzilla is both the good guy and the bad guy, depending on whatever plot device they're using.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like he's a force for good, and in doing so levels Tokyo on a regular basis.
Yeah,
like Rodan shows up, he's beating the piss out of Tokyo. Godzilla shows up, beats the piss out of Rodan, and in doing so destroys half of Tokyo.
Yeah.
So
beats Rodan with Tokyo.
Yeah, exactly.
They're like, yeah, Godzilla showed up. Oh shit, Godzilla showed up.
So like in no particular order, like it's always most of the Godzilla movies is always like Godzilla versus next giant monster. Mm-hmm. And it really just kind of fueled that for me all throughout my childhood. And these are awful movies. They are not acted very well. The sound is typically horrible. And the special effects are insanely bad. But they're like a good kind of... I could just watch it and be happy watching it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something about it. It's enjoyable.
Yeah, to be sure.
So, my next pick. One my wife hates me for making her watch.
Oh.
And to this day, despises me every time I bring it up. It is Drive Angry.
Or commute to and from the city every day.
Yeah. So this movie is, of course, a Nick Cage movie. So we're off to a good start.
Already, when you see Nick Cage, was Drive Angry post Face Off?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, I know I've heard it. I haven't seen it yet.
Drive Angry is actually 2011, so.
Oh, good.
It's not that long ago.
Good.
This one attracted the 5.4 stars on IMDb. It's got the likes of Amber Heard and William Fichtner. I don't know how to pronounce that name. I think that's right. Fichtner.
Sure. I'll believe it's Fichtner. Why not?
Yeah. You'd recognize him when you see him. Like, he trying to think of other movies he's been in. He was in...
I've seen... Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah.
He was in Independence Day. He was in Armageddon. He was in all that stuff.
He quite often plays like an antagonist to the story.
Yeah.
Like he's never he's never like the good guy. He's actually if you've ever seen the comedy series on Who the Hell Cares Network Television, Mom, he's the wheelchair-bound boyfriend of the older of the moms.
Really?
Yeah, he shows up in there. He's been in Prison Break, The Lone Ranger, Armageddon. The Dark Knight, I believe he was the bank manager.
He was. The guy that whipped out a shotgun on the Joker there.
Yeah, you have no idea whose money you're messing with. And
yeah.
He's one of those actors whose name you don't recognize, but whose face you will instantly recognize.
Yeah. So, Drive Angry, it's about a vengeful father that escapes hell and chases after the men that killed his daughter and kidnapped his granddaughter.
He escapes hell?
He escapes hell.
Nice. Nice.
He escapes hell in a rad muscle car.
If you're going to escape hell, it's either got to be in a rad muscle car and or a motorcycle.
Yeah, it's almost like, say, he took the writers of Ghost Rider and then got them high in a room, and this is the sequel they came up with.
I feel like the pitch in the elevator was like Nick Cage just saying, like, listen, it's Ghost Rider, but in a muscle car.
Yeah. So this William Fichtner guy, his character is titled The Accountant. So his job is to chase Nick Cage and drag him back to hell.
Okay.
Nick Cage is going after this kind of satanic cult that sacrificed his daughter and is trying to track down his granddaughter. The cult leader is played by Billy Burke.
Okay.
He's also a character that you'd recognize the face. So the movie is over the top pretty much the whole way through.
Which is always the good sign of like a good B movie, is it's just stupid.
It doesn't take itself serious.
No, well, that's always good.
Yeah. So that's definitely what it does. Nick Cage at one point tells, I believe, Billy Burke that he's going to kill him and then drink, I think, Jack Daniels from his skull.
Well, I mean, if you're going to drink Jack, I mean,
yeah,
why not from the skull? So
I'm not going to spoil the movie, but by saying this, because it's the movie, it's Nick Cage, it's spoiled from the start. So it does happen at the end where he blows the guy's head off, and then there's like this nice clean bit of skull that he'll go do a shot out of. One of the scenes that really just kind of tells you what this movie is about is Nick Cage gets into a gunfight in a seedy motel that's attached to a bar. And it's not just any gunfight. He is drinking Jack from the bottle in one hand while having standing up sex with a stripper. And I believe it is a shotgun in the other hand. And he's winning the fight, but doing all these three things at once. That one scene would be enough to get it. Like, if somebody just said, listen, I'm not going to tell you anything about this movie, I'm just going to have you watch this 15-second scene, yeah. I'm in. I'm all in on that. Yeah. So, it's one of Nick Cage's more memorable scenes, I'd say. I think he's really leaned into the fact that he knows he's no longer the blockbuster name that he once was. I think he's accepted the fact that he is a parody of what Nick Cage once was. Yeah. I think that he knows that when we all watch Nick Cage, we really just accept to see not necessarily the Nick Cage from Face Off so much as the Nick Cage from Face Off when he's the priest. When he's dressed up as the priest carrying on. That one scene, it's like, yeah, man, that's what Nick Cage is. There's, you know, he's had like a couple of like serious movies. He was at one point in time slotted to play Superman back in the like 90s, which I saw. If you can go online, you can Google the Nick Cage Superman test shot, and it is something to see. Yeah, that was going to be back when it was Tim Burton directing the Superman movie. Yeah, so it was going to be the death of Superman, or the rebirth of Superman. It's Superman with long hair after the death by Doomsday. Yeah, you see Nick Cage, and it's in this awful Superman costume. I mean, awful. It's
it's a shinier, glossier version of the Christopher Reeve Superman costume. He's got this ridiculously long hair, but like you can't ignore the Nick Cage forehead. Like the Nick Cage forehead, it showed up on that test shot. it is brutal. But I do like the fact that I think as time's gone on, he's accepted the fact that he is not an actor to be taken seriously.
No. Once you go and buy a T-Rex skull for your house and then forget to pay bills,
Yeah. When you're so obsessed about collecting Elvis paraphernalia, you literally marry his daughter. I'm questioning your motives. Did you forget that he married his daughter for a little bit?
Yeah. It wasn't so much forgotten, it's the way you phrased it.
Really, because when that happened, I was a teenager and I'm like, man, that's some serious collectors.
Yeah, that's a whole new level.
Right? Like because I remember when it was in the news, man, it was like, yeah, Nick Cage collects everything Elvis. And, oh, by the way, he just married whatever her name is, Presley. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Good for you, man. Good for you.
Yeah. Makes you think like she's in like a display case while she's in the house. You
gotta wonder. You really, really need to wonder.
All right. So yeah, if you haven't seen Drive Angry, I'm sure it's gonna be on TV at some point. So
it's got to be.
It was on Space not that long ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is a movie that I will not be allowed to watch with my girlfriend. She will have not. She barely lets me watch TV with her now, as it is.
Yeah, and yeah, you have Amber Heard that plays Cage's daughter, or not daughter, granddaughter. So she's come a long way now that she's gonna be in the Aquaman movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's Mira.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So yeah, Drive Angry. Check it out.
I'm going to, and I can't for the life of me imagine that it's going to be enjoyed by everybody in this house except for maybe by me.
Yeah, probably not.
So my next pick, and it was hard to pick just one from this one particular studio. It was 1984's Toxic Avenger.
The Toxic Avenger series.
It is, and it's not just the Toxic Avenger series so much as Troma Studios as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
They have never, and I've seen so many Troma movies. To give you an idea of some of their fantastic titles, Poultrygeist, where a zombie chicken goes around killing everybody. Surf Nazis Must Die, and Tromeo and Juliet. Troma Studios, they deal with a lot of body horror, a lot of slasher, like, let's just show this scene of somebody getting gutted and having their guts felt like they're horribly acted. They're horribly shot. The sound is sometimes like way out in left field. For some bizarre reason, and I can't for the life of me figure it out, the Toxic Avenger has a musical. Yeah, there is a Toxic Avenger musical, just like there's an Evil Dead musical, oddly enough. So the Toxic Avenger, the general gist of the story, a little dorky nerd kid working at a health spa, and it's the 1980s. So the girls are wearing like ridiculously tight bodysuits that like right up their butt crack. The guys are wearing nothing but like tight-fitting shorts and ridiculously shaped tank tops. They're always picking on this poor little nerd whose only job is to just scrub the health club clean. They torment the ever-loving hell out of him. One of the more attractive women tricks him into wearing a tutu for some bizarre reason. Because why not? If you're going to humiliate somebody, go all in.
Yeah.
She basically tells him, meet me over there. I'm going to be right there. You're everything I need in a man, quote unquote. In the end, while in the tutu, they throw him out of a window and he lands in a toxic vat. You know those toxic barrels that are just outside of businesses in the middle of the street?
Oh yeah, they're right there all the time.
Landing in the toxic vat, he mutates into the Toxic Avenger, who, if you were a kid growing up in the 90s, there was a cartoon, Toxie and the Toxic Avengers or some damn thing like that. It was a kid's cartoon specifically designed to address like pollution and global warming and all that jazz, and they kind of use this character as like an example of what happens when we don't care about the environment.
Yeah.
But I wasn't really interested in that when I was a kid because I had seen the actual like blood, guts, and gore and gratuitous nudity that was The Toxic Avenger. It spun off into countless sequels. The first one is still by far my favorite. It's a lot of body horror, horrible acting, horrible makeup. But he's basically dealing with the corrupt government of the town of, and this is an original name, Tromaville. So it's him basically becoming a vigilante for good and fighting the corrupt mayor and mauling different gangsters and of course getting set up. At one point in time, there's this little old lady that's dealing with him, and she attacks him. She's the ringleader of a drug chain. Sure enough, he rips her apart, and he's caught ripping apart this little old lady. It's words can't express how awful this movie is. It's got gratuitous violence, gratuitous sex, gratuitous nudity, and it's just such a fun movie to watch. and not just for all those. It's just so over the top bad that I went through the list of Troma films that I've seen, and I'm so disappointed to say I've seen so many of them. But this was the one that actually introduced me to the Troma series as a whole. At one point in time, when my son is significantly older, I will let him watch some of these movies because I had no business seeing these movies when I was as young as I was.
Yeah, like I'm just looking up right now. There's more than I would have expected. There goes up to like 4 or 5.
There's 5 in the series. Plus there's in Troma Studios they had the class of Nukem High, basically a radiation again, I think it's in Tromaville because why not? They all kind of like interconnect with each other. It's almost like the Quentin Tarantino universe of films. They're all kind of interwoven with each other in some way, shape, or form. But this is a movie that I remember watching on a number of occasions, and it was just panned as just god awful. It was rated low. It was everything that you could possibly want in a bad movie. And then over time, it started to more and more develop this like weird cult following. Just, I don't understand it for the life of me. Like, this is not something you should be proud to admit that you like to watch.
No.
But it's definitely got its hooks in a certain part of the zeitgeist.
Yeah, like I'm just looking through some of the Troma Studios lists here, and they have some gems. Like there's Sergeant Kabuki Man, NYPD. And so, yeah, I'm going to have to start watching some Troma films.
Do not watch it with your wife. I can't stress.
Yeah.
There's a good chance she will smother you in your sleep.
Yeah.
I let my girlfriend watch about 5 minutes of Poultrygeist, and she was just like, yep, so anything but this. Okay.
Fair enough.
It is an eclectic collection of movies, to say the least.
Yeah.
And if you ever seen interviews with like the director, he's just weird. He's just such a weird, campy dude all the time. Like, I go on YouTube, just type in like scenes from like anything, just Troma Studios, and you will get a very, very quick rundown of what I'm talking about. It's gratuitous everything to a level that is just absurd. You know, we're talking like blood on the level of like Mortal Kombat, where you flick a guy in the nose and there's like 20 gallons of blood on the floor. It's just so weird and insane. I can't grasp it for the life of me.
All right, so yeah, I'll definitely have to check out some of those. So my last pick, flipped through a couple of different movies. They're not necessarily B-level movies, but they're movies that did not necessarily do well on the IMDb rating scale. Movies that came up that I enjoyed were like Alien vs. Predator. Didn't do well in theaters.
No, it did not.
Still an enjoyable movie. Gamer, not well in theaters. Enjoyed it still.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Gerard Butler.
Yep, I remember.
One.
Yeah.
What I decided to settle on for my final one was Freddy vs. Jason.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, so did I, but I enjoyed it in the sense of a kid that grew up with like the 80s horror icons.
Yeah.
And I always remember like that was like the talk was like Freddy versus Jason. Freddy and Jason were going to beat the piss out of each other. It was just like at any time the movie was coming, and this is like pre-internet, so it's not like you could just search around for somebody talking about it.
No, and it was talked about for a long time. It was like the two slasher icons, aside from Michael Myers from Halloween. That was more of a, I think Halloween took itself a little bit more serious than Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, those movies, I remember being freaked out as a kid. It was scary. It was like, there was some fear to it, but it necessarily didn't ground itself in reality.
Mm-hmm.
Where Michael Myers in Halloween kind of did, except for Halloween 2, I think, Season of the Witch or whatever, got weird.
So, that was number 3, but that was because the idea of the Halloween movies was it was supposed to be an anthology.
Mm-hmm.
So outside of the first movies, Mike Myers actually shows up in Season of the Witch.
Yeah.
There's a scene with Jamie Lee Curtis fighting Mike Myers in the background somewhere. Like, he shows up in there. But it was never designed to be the Mike Myers movie series.
Yeah. So Freddy vs. Jason came out 2003. I remember seeing it in theaters. Stars Robert Englund as Freddy, reprises his role as Freddy. It's actually his last time playing Freddy on the big screen. That's kind of something there. Like, that's...
It is, because what's his name played it on the reboot? The guy that played Rorschach for Watchmen. Which I actually kind of liked the reboot, but it was lacking in the camp that the original Friday the 13th series, or excuse me, Nightmare on Elm Street series had.
Mm-hmm. Like, it was around the same time as when they brought back Friday the 13th kind of. I don't know if I'd say reboot. I guess it was a reboot. It's got Jared Padalecki or whatever from Supernatural.
Yeah. We went through that. There was that thing in the early 2000s where we all kind of like rebooted the classic 80s horror icons, but to not much fanfare.
So they did a good job with the Nightmare on Elm Street reboot. With can't remember his name now, but the Rorschach guy, he pulled off a good Freddy. With the Friday the 13th remake with Sam Winchester, like, that's all I could see him as for that role. I'm like, when's his brother gonna show up and they're gonna take down Jason here?
Yeah.
Like, it's not gonna be a thing.
No. What I see, the thing about the Freddy vs. Jason movie that I liked the most was that I was truly convinced we were gonna get a sequel out of it.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's out far, like the final scene where basically like Jason's holding Freddy's head, and then Freddy's eyes pop open and they wink at you. Like, I was so pumped for a sequel off of that.
Yeah. And, like, Freddy vs. Jason was following on the tales of Jason X.
Mm-hmm.
So Jason X is right up there with Leprechaun in Space.
Yeah.
It's where we get the 80s kind of horror character put in the space situation. So you get pretty much like half the cast of Andromeda playing in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a poorly done movie. But anyways, back to Freddy vs. Jason. You get Jason back on Earth doing what he does best, slashing.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a well done movie. It didn't take itself serious either. It was, and I use the term well done movie loosely. It was still kind of over the top, goofy.
There's like plenty of like back and forth. Like, you have Freddy beating the piss out of Jason when he realizes he can drag Jason into the dream realm and cover him in water. Mm. You have Jason drag Freddy out into the real world and hack and slice. Like, it really is a huge back and forth. Yeah. And when I watched that movie, I of course saw it in theaters because I had to. It was just one of those things where it was like, I'm not sure you can let one or the other win.
You can't.
Because you're going to piss off a lot of people on either side.
Yeah.
You know, all of us really cool, awesome nerds who just know everything about one or the other character. It's like, no, he's got to win because X, Y, Z. It's like, yeah, but then he lost over here, so why wouldn't he be able to do this? And it was just like, well done movie. It was definitely an exciting movie to watch. It was like Alien versus Predator, it was that it was designed for the fans that always wanted to see that.
Mm-hmm. Both characters are known to be immortal, so it's basically, like, you're not going to really see one necessarily triumph or the other, but you're going to see you want to watch them beat the piss out of each other. Yeah,
I mean, even to the ending, where Freddy's eyes suddenly blink open, like in almost all of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, Freddy loses. He gets diced up. He gets put into pieces, and he's always back again for more. So, yeah. I had a couple of friends that really bitched about that ending, and I'm like, but he always comes back. Yeah. I mean, it's like Jason. It's like Michael Myers. They always come back because we need to keep the series going.
Yeah, and just to give you a little kind of rundown for those who haven't seen it, the synopsis is basically Freddy. He's only significant when he's remembered.
Yeah.
And when people remember him, when they start forgetting him, he loses his power. He's not able to go to the dreams. So what he does is he revives Jason to help scare people again, make people like afraid again.
I forgot about that plot point. Yeah, I completely forgot about that.
So then Jason comes back, starts killing people, but then he starts gaining more notoriety. And then that's when Freddy's like, whoa, no, I'm in charge here. I'm the boss.
I brought you back. You can't be overshadowing me.
Yeah. And it ends exactly how pretty much every Friday the 13th movie, not every, but most of the Friday the 13th movie ends is, Freddy ends up in pieces, but still alive. And you usually see Jason walking off into the woods by himself.
Yeah. And they had kind of talked about maybe doing a sequel, but it's just, I don't think it performed well in the box office. Just like just like the Nightmare on Elm Street reboot, they're going for another round with it. But the last reboot that we did back in the mid 2000s, I think it was the mid 2000s, like 2005 or 2006, wasn't it?
I think it was later than that. I think it was probably like 2013.
No. Yeah. I was sure it was earlier than that. But it didn't perform particularly well. But on the same token, I think they kind of went over budget. And the thing about Freddy Krueger is that he really got a real beef with women. and I don't think the Freddy of the 80s plays particularly well nowadays.
No.
I was having this discussion with a couple of guys. We were talking about like movie monsters and stuff like that. And I brought up Freddy Krueger and just how he talks, and particularly like some of the themes in like the movies in like the 90s and the 80s don't translate very well nowadays, and a lot of people don't want to see a lot of the stuff that went on in those movies, and it's too bad in the sense of like nostalgia wise, we really love Nightmare on Elm Street, but then like when you start picking apart like, I don't think you can really put that on the screen anymore. I think a lot of people would get really upset seeing that.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so what was your last pick there?
So my last and final one, I have no idea. I remember watching these movies when I was a kid simply because of where I grew up and the friends that I had. But my last movie is Dolomite.
Dolomite.
Yeah, have you ever seen Dolomite?
Not in its entirety, no.
So I have this thing. I grew up in a really unfortunate area in Toronto, and all of my friends' dads. It was a largely African American area, so all my friends' dads had all the movies like Shaft, Dolomite, Black Samurai, all these huge blaxploitation movies. Blackula, I've seen a dozen times. And there's just something, they're not well done. They were specifically designed to appeal to one particular target audience, and it wasn't a little white kid that lives in the city. But there's just something so awesome about it. The music is, if you like psychedelic funk, like the music for me pretty much makes the whole entire movie, and the bad kung fu. Every blaxploitation movie is like chock full of like slow motion bad kung fu.
You gotta love bad kung fu.
You do have to love it. So it was made in the early 70s, and the thing about these movies is that it's like a lot of really negative stereotypes. If you were to make a movie like that today, you would be lynched out of Hollywood. But with the super negative stereotypes, it was the first time when movies went from casting African American actors from like soft shoe, comic relief sort of nonsense to the straight up heroes. They were the ones that won. They fought the good fight. They were there for a reason. They were rising up, and it was always the man that they were fighting. Dolomite. The plot is basically he's a pimp that spent 20 years in prison. He's got out and he's going for revenge against the rival pimp that put him there. And the rhyming scheme that Dolomite talks is just ridiculous. He's like the street version of the mouse from like today's special when I was a kid. Like he can't not rhyme when he's talking. The kung fu is every slow motion. I'm going to put my hand here. You put your hand there. Like they're clearly not connecting half the time when they're hitting each other. If you look up the Wikipedia article on Dolomite, the plot is summarized in one paragraph. And that is it. He gets out. He gets out of prison. He's looking for revenge on the pimp that put him there. He goes to another pimp for help. She helps him. And it really is just kung fu, gung violence, and psychedelic funk playing in the background.
Okay. I
cannot stress how awful this movie is. It is. There was like no money put into it. It cost $100,000 to make.
Jeez.
To date, in the box office, it made $12 million.
To date.
To date. Well, no, it has on there. To date, it's actually made significantly more money. As these movies like all blaxploitation movies, sexploitation movies, body horror movies, they develop these cult followings, so the numbers keep getting higher and higher and higher and higher. Mm-hmm. But it hit number 6 on IMDb out of 10. Again, I don't think it deserves much more than a 4. But it is just such a fantastic bad movie. It is a movie that every now and then will pop up on TV, usually late at night. Mm-hmm. And I will catch it because I'm forbidden to watch these kinds of movies around my girlfriend because she can't appreciate it for what it is. She can't appreciate the good bad movies.
Nice.
So that's my final pick. I was kind of torn. It was either going to be Dolomite or Shaft. The original Shaft, not Sam Jackson's Shaft.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I haven't seen it, so.
Yeah, I had to go with that one because, namely, if I started a conversation about the Shaft movie by saying I love Shaft, I just figured that would just spiral out into another humiliation of me online, and I just can't. I can't bear that pressure from you anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Yeah.
You know what you did. You know what you did.
All right, so that's going to wrap up this week's episode. If you have a bunch of downtime, for some reason feel like watching a bad movie, now you have a list of bad movies you can go check out.
Well, and I think the question is like, what are like your favorite bad movies? Like we only covered 6, but there are hundreds of B movies out there.
Yeah.
There's no shortage of it. They still make them today. There's just so many. There's too many to count. Like we kind of narrowed it down to 6, but there are way more out there.
Yeah.
And I could go on for a long time talking about these.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that'll
that does it for our bad movie mentions.
Yeah. So we're gonna get probably a whole bunch of haters now for making them watch these movies.
I don't know, man. I think that you gotta kind of like broaden your horizons. I think it's good to go back, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people have seen on your list, and
yeah,
I know there's at least a few people that have seen the ones on my list.
There's like bad movies that are good bad movies, and then there's just bad movies. And these are like the good bad movies.
These are the bad movies that have developed a following that kind of stand out in their own genres. Mm-hmm. They're not Twilight. Just put it that way. They're all not Twilight.
Yeah.
But they're campy in a fun, we can't take ourselves serious way.
Yeah.
And it's really good to kind of see like just see how it was done, how bad movies can be good.
All right, well, let us know what your favorite bad movies are. You can hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or as always, if you feel like sending us an email, It's nerdiumpodcast@gmail.com. And let us know what your favorite bad movies are.
Yeah, give us a shout out. Maybe you might have one that we haven't seen yet, and we might sit down and torment ourselves or really enjoy it. I mean, these movies are designed to be enjoyed, not to be tortured by.
Exactly. All right, till next time.
Take care, everybody.